Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. A little bit of an early happy holidays as well, and a happy new year. I think this is probably going to be definitely the last webinar that I have, at least, that you all will be joining for Grandstream. So just, on behalf of everyone here, just happy New Year's. Really appreciate everyone joining today to talk about deploying K-12 school networks with Grandstream. My name is Brian Van Meter. I'm a marketing manager here with Grandstream Networks. Today I have just prepared a short presentation just to go over deploying K-12 school networks. We'll be covering just some of the main things to look at, main features when it comes to these networks, how you can craft the solutions, what goes into it, along with the various Grandstream products to look at. And we'll be examining 2 case studies as well that have different various school deployments. And then I'll wrap everything up with a question and answer at the end. Just a few things before we get started. If you have any questions and you're joining us via the IP Video Talk portal, please go ahead and use that Q&A feature that you can find just a little bit below, right over there on your screen. It's a little bubble with a Q in it. I'll be using that to answer any questions. Feel free to use the chat just to talk amongst yourselves, talk about the solutions, anything else. If you're joining via Facebook, go ahead and leave a comment if you have any questions, and I will respond there as well. And of course, I will be sending out a recording of this afterwards, and it'll also be available on YouTube and Facebook as well, along with the slides. So with no further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. And that. Okay. All right. So yeah, deploying unified communications for K-12 school networks, also called primary education. These are everywhere from all the way down to preschool, all the way up to prep schools for college, for example, type of scenarios. Real quick, though, about Grandstream before we get going here. For those who are new, this may be your first time on one of our webinars, don't know too much about us. We were founded in 2002 and have over 600 employees. We have a wide product portfolio that contain well over 40 products from our business conferencing devices to our IP phones, gateways and ATAs, networking devices, and so on, all the way up to our award-winning IP BBXs. And we primarily serve small to medium-sized business and consumer markets. We're located all over the world. All right. So characteristics of a K-12 school deployment, definitely a really good place where we want to begin this webinar here and start talking about how we want to craft a solution or a deployment. So it has a large diversity in the products that you're going to use depending on the user base. You have a lot of different requirements, and we'll be touching on this in a little bit, of the many different individuals that are using this unified communications network, both in network, so our teachers, administration staff, district staff within offices, even students, along with out-of-network individuals we need to consider as well for these deployments, meaning parents and community members. And like I said, we'll touch on that in a second. Security and communication integration typically is pretty key here. We see a lot more security being a primary facet of any kind of network deployment when it comes to schools, facility access control. And the requirement really is to have it integrate with our paging and communications just to make sure everyone can be informed at all times, as well as just simply using your communication tools to provide or disallow access to a school facility. Of course, paging and intercoms play a big role in facility communications, everything from your morning announcements that typically page across all classrooms to paging specific devices in order to call various individuals down to the office, any type of students, teachers, anything that's needed there, calling assemblies, etc. Definitely plays a big role in any K-12 deployment. Wi-Fi in this situation and UC, Unified Communications, mobility, go hand in hand with school deployments. Typically, we're seeing more and more schools adopting different, more intelligent tools for teaching that require Wi-Fi access, and because of this, your unified communication tools can also be incorporated with this sort of Wi-Fi network that you're creating. For many deployments, especially a lot for local governments, local public schools, cost is a primary concern. A lot of you may have experience putting forth bids, trying to win bids on various school deployments, and definitely this is a sort of sometimes a #1 factor when it comes to your K-12 deployment. All right. So when it comes to Grandstream and our sort of K-12 school solutions, at least the big ones that I'll be touching on, of course, all of our devices could fit in one way or another, but the main ones that I'm talking here are our IP telephony products. So these are IP phones, our video IP phones, our IPBBXs, and our ATAs and gateways. Our networking products can play a big role with our Wi-Fi access points, gigabit routers if a VPN needs to be created, and then also cloud management for all those Wi-Fi assets. Then, of course, facility management, our intercoms and paging devices. Our facility access devices are a big one, and then our HD and IP cameras when needed. All right. So when we're deploying a K-12 school network here, what's our primary dilemma, the main thing that we need to think about, and that is, well, of course, what devices and solutions should I select for a K-12 school? Where do I get started? What should I choose? What's the main sort of solution I want to try and craft and build? Well, there's really two questions that can help us answer this. The first one is a pretty normal question that sort of we all always ask ourselves when it comes to going through any installment, making any kind of network. What are the network requirements, of course? For schools, typically they really require to be redundant and have failover capabilities. So they need to be able to easily pick up any type of network outages and route over to a new IPBBX, for example, to continue to function easily. Without any kind of hiccup in the network. They typically have complex call queues and IVR setup with many different departments, especially if this is a full district deployment, which I'll be talking about a little bit later in this webinar. Some of your IVR setups and call queues can get a little bit complex, and you need to have a system that can support that. Typically, SIP peering, VPNs, or other methods may be required to create one overall network. So if you're trying to link an entire school district into one network, so let's say 5, 6, 7 schools all into one, connecting to a central office, central district office, typically this is required. Good thing to consider is how many users will be under the network. For many education facilities, you could have anywhere from just maybe 200 users all the way up to 2,000, depending on how large the school is and how large amount of a populace the district serves. And obviously, you need to have a solution that can support that and maybe even scale up as well for when a population is anticipated to grow. How important is mobility throughout the network? Within education facilities, we're seeing larger campuses, multiple floors. Teachers have to frequently go from point A to point B. Not only that, but we're also seeing security staff, custodial staff in the mix. All do need to have communication solutions that are available to them. Then at last as well, how will the network be managed and configured and updated? This is always a big thing as well. Do you constantly need to come back on site, or do we want a solution that can be managed completely from the cloud? And of course, I'm plugging gdms.cloud here in this case as well. So that's kind of the first question here. What are the network requirements? The next thing, though, when it comes to the school, the sort of second question we want to ask ourselves, who will be using the network and how? So, of course, the main one that we want to look at here, teachers, school staff, and district office staff. These are one of the sort of main user bases we want to consider when building our network and choosing our devices. But we also have to keep in mind parents and community members. Typically, especially in public schools, parents and community members are frequently calling into the network. Of course, they won't have endpoints provided to them, but the solutions we go with and how we craft it, we need to keep that in mind. Parents need to be able to call in to get information. They need to call in to report absences. How are you going to route those individuals? How do you want to guide them? Do you maybe want to set up a DID to provide them so that they have a direct number to dial into over others? Community members, so we're talking about in this case vendors or possibly local nonprofits that work to provide benefits for different parts of the school or school organizations. They need to have a way to call in, and of course they need to be considered for this solution as well, and their needs met too. Last but not least, students. Some situations, students and a lot of schools are starting to be considered more and more as sort of Wi-Fi enabled devices are being sort of brought in for the actual, for learning purposes. So when we're crafting a Wi-Fi network, this needs to be considered as well, not only their needs, but also various different ways to limit their Wi-Fi access while at school too. So let's get into this in a little bit more detail. So teachers and staff. So there's a lot of different individuals here that we need to consider. First off, administration staff. They typically need to field a high number of inbound calls. So I'm mainly talking about receptionists in this example, who frequently are taking any amount of inbound calls that are coming from parents, community members, etc., and routing them to the correct location or either just taking them themselves and answering any relevant questions. Local school staff. We require facility-wide communications. This is pretty, like I was mentioning earlier, pretty self-explanatory. We're talking about paging different classrooms to request students, making morning announcements, moving students from point A to point B when having, for example, assemblies or other school-wide events. Mobile teachers, so if it's a solution where mobility is, very much so needed, they need communications that they can roam around with that won't fail on them, that they can easily go from point A to point B while still having a still having a conversation. Then, of course, our security and custodial staff, they need to have facility access and control of those facilities to be able to easily go in and out and then maintain a secure school grounds. And then, of course, teachers want a powerful Wi-Fi network as well. This sort of goes for anyone, really. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to do work on a Wi-Fi network or even an internet connection that's very slow. Teachers especially need to keep their productivity high, especially while on school grounds, between classes, trying to do grades, send emails. There's a lot of different situations here where they require a good Wi-Fi network. All right. I'm going to take a quick drink here. All right, excuse me. Okay, parents and community members. These are individuals, like I said, we need to keep them in mind when developing sort of these K-12 school deployments. Parents require easy ways to report absences. Ask about school events, stay informed. This is all something that we need to keep in mind when sort of developing our inbound routes and how to develop the ways that we want individuals to be able to call into the school and who's going to be handling those calls. Parents may need remote parent-teacher conference access. This can definitely be something that can be achieved with the devices that we deploy in the school. We'll touch on it, for example, a little bit later, but for example now, GXV, our Grandstream's IP video phones, parents could even hold remote conferences with teachers as long as that device is sort of deployed within the school network. Teachers can easily call different parents via Skype or SIP conference, etc. Local vendors and emergency responders, of course, they require access to the facility. So in the case of a fire or another emergency, our emergency responders need to be able to have easy access to the facility. We all remember back in high school and elementary school the various amount of fire drills we always have. Of course, this is something that also then plays within our emergency responders. Local vendors as well. You know, a school doesn't work unless you have people delivering the many different materials needed, food for the cafeteria, paper, and etc. Local vendors need to be able to have easy access to the facility. This sort of needs to go and be kept in mind for our deployment. School departments and extensions. So this may need to be reachable by parents or community organizations. How do you want to go ahead and organize those IVRs, those extensions? These are all things that you need a sort of IPBX to be able to handle. Then, of course, after-school events may require Wi-Fi access. So we're thinking about sport games, concerts, theater performance. All of these things may require some type of Wi-Fi interaction, especially with outdoor situations. You need a long-range and powerful Wi-Fi device here. All right, last but not least, when we're looking at students here, students within our K-12 deployment, they need to stay informed with facility-wide announcements. So we need a page and an intercom system that is designed and works well for this purpose. Wi-Fi access for schools. Starting to become more and more a thing where we're having sort of students are using tablets or laptops purely for learning purposes. This also needs to be kept in mind. Certain situations we may need to have Wi-Fi access be blacklisted or to certain websites or have bandwidth control or different limits, and I'll touch on that soon. School grounds for the students, of course, needs to be kept secured. We need to have facility access that is easily open so that students can easily come and go to school during hours, but also while they're in school, that makes sure that no one who shouldn't be in the school is not in there, keeping them safe. Then, of course, in some situations, too, we've seen schools that do like to have extensions assigned to different various teachers or directly to a teacher's voicemail so that students are able to sort of leave voicemails and ask questions for teachers after hours. All right. So what this all sort of comes into, solution for a K-12 school. So the devices and features that we choose that we want to go with, they have to support both sort of that overall network we were talking about, those overall network requirements, then also these individual users. You need to meet both of these needs. So Grandstream can be leveraged to sort of create a cohesive network that does support both of these, support both the network and the users. So here's just a quick little easy framework, just a fast example I wanted to give of how we could have it work with the internet coming in, our SIP trunk providers through the school network, then our PoE switches. Everything can be connected within the UCM IPBX, our Ethernet IP devices connected in this way as well. Wi-Fi access points connected and PoE powered, which then can bring in our Wi-Fi devices, whether this be laptops, tablets, or cordless Wi-Fi IP phones. All of these things you can leverage Grandstream to sort of create a full and cohesive environment that will meet all these needs. So just some key sort of Grandstream products and features I want to cover real quick. Our UCM IPBX is an anchor for any school deployments. It really is the sort of central nervous system that everything is built off of here. Our IP endpoints, they can be customized for the many different users. We have a wide portfolio to choose from. Wi-Fi access points, we both have indoor and outdoor solutions that are good for both staff and students, and we'll go into that in a second. Facility management. Of course, we have this and offer this as well to keep an entire school secured and then also informed of those intercom and paging devices. And that's cost effective, no licensing fees. Really good bang for your buck as well. All right, so just to touch on the first one, the UCM IPBX here with our school feature highlight. So these are some of the main features we want to go over when it comes to school extension assignment, of course, is a big thing here. Outbound and inbound route management can be fully customized and set up. IVRs and call queues, as complex as you want to get, we can really go into big details with this to really help guide any type of inbound calls or even help guide any type of in-network calls as well, depending on how big the district is. Direct inward dialing numbers, of course, will be supported with the UCM IPBX as well, is supported, excuse me. Then paging and multicast paging support is key as well here, all capable with the UCM IPVBX. All right, our IP endpoints, here are some of the features that we want to highlight. So like I said earlier, that wide portfolio provides a perfect fit. We have everything that you can imagine when it comes to the IP endpoints, anything from a sort of more desktop deployment for classrooms to maybe our more high call volume receptionists. Definitely have the perfect phone for every individual and every user. Multi-purpose keys and SIP presence are supported. Advanced telephony features, everything from call hold, park, transfer, blind transfer, etc., all supported with our devices. Integration with facility management products. This is actually kind of a big one. Our devices can actually integrate with all of our various facility management products, from being able to have paging and multicast paging capabilities. So, you know, if you have one deployed in a central office for making those announcements, and, you know, calling individuals down the office, fully integrated, just clicking a button, you can make these paging calls. As well as integrating with our facility access systems, being able to take and accept inbound calls from those and either accept or deny access. Desktop video conferencing collaboration may be needed within deployments, like I said, in these districts that may span over wider school districts, a much larger geographic area. We can definitely deploy these and give teachers the availability to still have conferences with parents who may not be able to make it on site. And then we have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth availability on the select models. All right, for facility management, some of our highlighted features for schools here. Two-way, one-way, and multicast paging, all supported with our intercom and paging devices. Facility access can be done by code with our GDS facility access system. So by code, RFID, key fob, door switch, or even a desktop phone, like I mentioned earlier, all supported. So however your school wants to secure their grounds, can completely be done, completely customized. You have a really, really good ability to make a perfect deployment here in this situation. Alarm in and alarm out provides integration with any type of existing security systems a school may have, so from your electric door switches to maybe any kind of break-in alarms, anything like that, can all integrate with our facility access solutions. Even having alarm outs that go out, such as emails or any type of audible alarms that happen, can all be set up. And then security events can also be managed via our GDS manager, our software that can be used to manage our GDS facility access devices. All right, and last but not least here, our Wi-Fi networking solutions. Some of the highlight features we want to look at, both a built-in and cloud controller. So for solutions that may have a low number of GWN access points, we're talking about 50 to 75 or 100. These can all be managed via a GWN access point on site. One can actually be made to be the manager for all these devices. But for bigger deployments, we can completely manage it via the GWN.cloud. It's our cloud platform that can be used to completely update, configure, and provision our GWN access points. In this way as well, everything can be monitored from off-site too. So, you know, we don't have to have someone on-site to make any type of changes to our network. Multiple SSID channels are supported as well. So if you want to have the channel set for staff and one set for students and one set for our security or for guests, can completely do that. Actually supports up to 16 channels. Captive portals are also supported, so if you would like to require anyone to submit any type of specific information or maybe even provide a countdown timer for how long the Wi-Fi connection is provided before it needs to be refreshed, you can do that here. It also supports QoS settings, quality of service settings for Wi-Fi voice traffic. So if mobility is a big deal in your network, in your school, our devices can actually be set up to prioritize Wi-Fi voice traffic just to make sure that the sort of call quality is maximized at all times. along with having plenty of customization features based on your network requirements. So we're talking about you can dedicate certain amounts of bandwidth per channel, so making sure that your staff can always have fast network speeds. We can have time-limited Wi-Fi access, just kind of one of the ways we can maybe control student access to the Wi-Fi and make sure it is always for education purposes. Along with, like I said, being able to blacklist websites, set download limits, just to make sure that, of course, students are using the Wi-Fi for education purposes. All right. So let's take a look at a couple case studies. I have two here today that we'll get into. The first one I want to talk about was from one of our installers, Voice Connects, in a various amount of Missouri school districts that they have actually used Grandstream to create a framework and complete solution for on each. So just take a quick overview of the solution. So over 60 school districts are using a Grandstream framework in the state of Missouri within the United States. So over 60 entire districts are completely based in using Grandstream solutions for their networks. So the big thing here is they want to migrate from traditional analog systems, which is actually something that we're seeing a lot. Schools are really late adopters when it comes to technology. It's affordable, feature-loaded, future-proof, scalable, all achievements that they were able to make with these solutions. Then our districts range anywhere from 150 users to some of the smaller school districts, all the way up to 1,500 active users. So anywhere from very small to huge districts. All right. So what I was talking about earlier here, the requirements of this particular case study and the devices that were chosen. So user network requirements. They needed something that was redundant and connected to a communications network. UCM IPBX was deployed in a network arrangement in this example, and it was able to make a redundant and fail-proof solution, which we'll go to in a next slide here. They needed custom endpoints and conferencing endpoints. They were very concerned about having most of the school districts about, well, we have different users with different needs. A variety of GXP 1600 devices were chosen for classrooms, while the 2100 series were chosen for administration, receptionists, and different offices. Of course, the GAC 2500 for conferencing needs. The voice traffic for most of these districts needed to be spread out. We needed a lot of different options because they had very large inbound rates. Once again, the UCM IPBX, one was actually deployed in each actual school, and that was able to spread the voice traffic, which I'll show in a second here. Video IP phones were actually deployed for our principals and our district managers, just to help with that collaboration. Facility management for school security and students. The GDS 3700 series was used for access control. And also, excuse me, that's a typo, it's supposed to be GSC 3500 series, but for facility paging and intercoms, the GSC series was used for intercom and paging requirements. Of course, this needed to be cost-effective. This is a necessity. With Grandstream solutions, like I said, no licensing fees, no hidden costs, nothing like that. The solution that you have is completely scalable and affordable while being feature-packed. So this is just a good example here of how Voice Connects is making various different solutions, how they're actually deploying for these districts. So our school district office typically has our 6510, UCM 6510 as the central UCM, whereas each different school is either deployed one of the 6200 series from the 6202, 04, or 08, excuse me. Then, like I said, it was deployed in a network arrangement. It creates a fail-proof solution. So everything is under one network, but if at any time the central school district office network is to go down, the various schools would still be able to accept any kind of inbound calls and route them to their correct destination. All right. Case study number 2 here, Semper Altius. Excuse me, I almost butchered that one. But this was a school, a set of 3 schools that were looking to completely sort of revolutionize and upgrade their communications. They typically go with a little bit more of a creative approach when it comes to education, so had some different requirements. So once again, and like I said earlier, we're looking at an old analog UC system. Had to be completely removed, which it was, and updated. But in this case, we still needed support for analog trunks when needed, so these analog copper lines. You could easily do that with the UCM series along with our GXW devices. Needed comprehensive IVR and call queue framework support. So they had above average inbound calls. This was able to easily be managed with our UCM IPBX series. An immersive Wi-Fi network was actually built out both for staff and student use. So like I said in this example, some of the students had access to different Wi-Fi capable learning devices like tablets or laptops that were used for the education process. And we had 4 sites sharing the same network in this solution as well. All right, so some of the requirements in the devices that we chose to go with here. So let's take a look at the user network requirements. They had a diverse education program that really required a comprehensive IVR support, many different departments, many different individuals responsible for the education process. Wi-Fi was needed to assist with that education process, along with keep staff mobile. And then we need integration with existing analog providers, just to fail-proof the solution. So for Grandstream, of course, the UCM IPBX was deployed as the anchor, so connecting all the various schools together under one network and supporting that comprehensive IVR need. Once again, our GXP 1600 series and 2100 series was selected depending on the user. GAC 2500 for conferencing rooms. And our GWN 7610 was used to create networks across the entire campus of each school. All right, guys. So it's pretty much it. We're going to wrap it up and kind of bring it back in here. So like I said, when it comes down to it, developing these solutions, you need to keep in mind both the network requirements and the actual individual user requirements. Each school district can be fairly unique depending on the needs and how they educate their students. So it's always important to keep that in mind. But that being said, Grandstream can be leveraged in almost any situation to create a very customized and comprehensive solution, no matter what your school district needs or your particular school deployment requires. All right, so we're hitting just about 30 minutes, which was the goal for the presentation here. So I'm going to pop back over and start answering questions real quick. Okay. All right, great. So I'm actually not seeing any questions. So I'm going to hold on just a second. So if you have any questions, guys, please feel free to go ahead and ask them now. If not, if you have some to ask a little bit later, like I said, I will be sending out an email just with the slides and with the recording of this webinar. So please feel free to ask any questions afterward there. If you're watching us via Facebook Live or on YouTube later, just go ahead and ask any questions in the comment section. I'll get back to you there as well. But it looks like we're good. So, okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Happy holidays and have a great rest of the year and a happy new year to everyone. Thank you so much and take care.